Hi there. Well, something that you don't see very often on this channel is me doing kind of refurbishments, restoration type things. But I'm going to be restoring, bringing back to life this lovely old model that's designed in the 1950s. Now, I am working on a lovely vintage build series which I'll be posting soon, but I'm just going to do a few videos on this. This is a 1941 Gladiator, a real beast of a plane. But anyway, back to this. Now, I was made an offer that I couldn't refuse on this, and it was I picked it up from a friend. It's a lovely old model, and he was clearing out the estate of an aero modeler, a local aero modeler. And it's funny because I'd only been looking at the plans of this a few days before and thinking it was quite a nice kind of quirky design with this arched back. Now this is the Keil Kraft Bantam, but it's got a little bit of a very slightly checkered history from the start, because this was a new kit for Keil Kraft in 1955, and in April they advertised this in Aero Modeler as the Anzac. And you can see there's a picture of the advert here, and they actually advertised that as well so it was in April as well as in May. But then there was concerns raised about using the word Anzac, and quite rightly so, because it's related to Australian and New Zealand veterans and the sacrifices that were made in the Second World War. So Keil Kraft clearly didn't know this or appreciate it, and they renamed this the Bantam. And I think it was in June 1955, so only a couple of months later, when they realised that the mistake they'd made. And you can see here there's an advertisement here in Aero Modeler for the Bantam renamed. And they did actually, I think it was in the month after that, in June or I think it's July, they issued a kind of a statement as to why they'd renamed it. But this is a lovely model. At the moment it's set up for single channel, and it's got a 1940s ED competition special in engine in the front. Now, a friend of mine said when he was talking about this, he said that the engine was a runner but not a looker. Well, actually I've had a look in the Keil and it doesn't look too bad. I mean, to be honest, the whole plane doesn't look too bad until you really start to look closely at it. I mean, the wings, lovely and true, nicely covered. It's had a few patches repaired, but that isn't so bad. There's no nasty twists or breaks or anything like that. So I'm quite pleased with that. And the same with the tailplane. Well, the tailplane is in good nick. Both of these hold on with rubber bands. It has got a slight dihedral to it. Not sure that's, well, it's not supposed to be there, but I think it'll be fine. It'll trim out. It's very slight. Now, my understanding is this hasn't been in the air for a long time, possibly decades. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip out all of the electronics. I want to get the cowl off, have a look at this engine, because actually it does look like a looker to me. It's got compression, so that should be fine. I'm not a great one with using other people's electronics, so I'm thinking I'll replace the servo in there perhaps, because you don't know the history, and what's the point in risking losing a model or crashing a model just on the, you know, a fairly cheap servo. So I'm going to be stripping this down, I think, taking all the electronics out, and I think I'm going to end up recovering it, because everywhere you look there's kind of holes, and rather than try and patch this up, I'm not a great lover of the colour, I must admit, but I think it'd be quite nice to give this a nice new covering. But the actual fuselage itself feels lovely and sound, so I think it should be a good model in the end. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to take off the cowl. I'm going to strip all this out. We'll come back and see what I found and any horrors or not. So, well, I should just point out that the original Keil Kraft kit from 1955 was a 39-inch wingspan, and you probably noticed that from the adverts that I showed a minute ago. Now, this is obviously a lot bigger. This is increased by what, 50%. It's got a 60-inch wingspan. Now, the original 39-inch wingspan plans can be downloaded for free from the AutoZone website, and if you have a look in the description below this video you'll find a link to those plans. So let's crack on and start to get this cleaned up. Well, as you can see, I've been busy, and I've got a lot of foam here out of the fuselage using a big pair of forceps. More to the point, I've taken the engine out, and the engine doesn't look bad, to be honest. Looking at the serial number on it, it looks like it's quite a late production one, but also looking at the aluminium casting, it finishes in /9C. I don't know whether that will show up there. And the C is for Comp Special. The 9 could be 49, but I think it's more likely to be 59 because it does look like an old engine. It's got this has been extended, the compression screw, so I'm going to make a new one because I think the cowl isn't as shown on kind of the plans and the advertisements. It kind of covers the whole engine, and I would rather have it so it was cut away so you can actually see the engine, and that's what it was like on the adverts, and I do like to see my engines in operation. The prop driver and the nut is, I think this is probably original, but there should be another washer and a nice dome nut, so that's something I'll probably end up making myself. But we're going to put that on one side for the moment. Oh, just to say, there's some nasty teeth marks in the fins here, so I may well take the head off and clean that up a little bit. I just like my engines to look nice. Now I've taken all of the electronics out, which I won't be reusing, and I've got the got the windscreen off, or the windshield. It's quite nice to have an open cabin model like this. We can see there's also metal here which has been painted, but I think this I will take off, and when I eventually do this I'll put that back on just as polished metal, maybe aluminium or lithoplate, something like that. I've decided I am going to recover this because there is quite a lot of damage. We can see here and the tissue is very, very fragile. There's a hole there, there's a hole here that's being patched, and what I'd like to do is recover it and actually maybe put an access hatch in the bottom, or redesign it a little bit around here, because I'd like to put 2 servos in, because we have got the rudder, as I said, but I want to put an elevator on as well, so it needs to have 2 servos in there. So to allow me to remodel it, like I say, I am going to cover it. So what I'm going to do is start stripping off some of this. Hopefully it's going to come off fairly easily because it is tissue and dope. Look at that, that's coming off quite nicely. So I will carry on stripping this, and then we'll have a look at what we end up with. Right, well, as you can see, I'm cracking on with this, but just a comment on the technique. I'm finding that we've got stringers here. If I put a cut line down the middle of the stringers and then just peel it up from there, and just obviously we need to be really careful on these stringers, and that just allows you to take the whole lot off. If we cut it on a stringer, then it's harder to get your fingers to start peeling it, and it'll stick to the stringers a little bit more, or it's harder to get off, should I say. But if we, like I say, cut it so we've got an edge, then we can just hopefully get the whole lot off. I mean, there's going to be quite a bit of sanding just to get some of the residue off, but it's I think I'm going to cover it in something a little bit darker, so if there is a little bit of the blue left on, hopefully that won't show up too badly. But you can see this is coming off quite nicely. Just going to need to stick at it. There we go, look at that, lovely. Right, well, I thought it was definitely time for an update, seeing as the fuselage is starting to do me head in a little bit, but I am cracking on with it, I am getting it done. You can see it's starting to clean up. The there are bits of blue that are going to be very difficult to get out, but I am stripping it off where I can and I'm sanding it. I did try some cellulose thinners on the front here, which was quite helpful, but it's got its limitations. I'm not going to be able to get all of this blue off because of the way it's been sprayed and the crevices that there are, but I do have a cunning plan for that. But I've put that aside because I felt like I needed to do something a little bit different than the fuselage. So I've done the tailplane, I've stripped all that off, and that is looking really nice. As I said earlier, I don't know whether that shows, there's a little bit of a bend in that, and to be honest I don't think it will matter, but I may try and straighten it. I'll have a think about that. And as you can see, I started on the wing, and this is coming off really nice and simple, like it did on the tailplane. Where it's not coming off on this trailing edge, I'm just using my sanding stick to get that off. It is clogging it up a little bit, so I've got a bit of a bronze brush I keep rubbing it with, but I think the wings are quite easy really. It is just this fuselage that's going to cause me a few issues, but you know, nice and steady, and I'll get this done. Right, well, you can see I've got this airframe now all cleaned up, or mostly cleaned up to a point that I'm happy with, and I'll go into that in just a second. Now if we look at the wings, I've got most of the blue off that. There's still a little bit on there, and I'm going to put these to one side now, and just to say that these wings are 5 foot, they're 16-inch span, and the only spars in these are 316 balsa. There's 3 of them, and it's a very flimsy wing, which if you're building a contest model is ideal because it's nice and light. But for a model that I would like to have a bit more resilience, it does make me a little bit nervous. So I'm going to be doing some work in a subsequent video, only a little bit, just to add a little bit more strength and resilience to these. But these have come out absolutely lovely. It's a really nice, straight and true wing. So I'll put that on one side so we're nice and safe. I've got the tailplane here, which we've seen before, because I said there was that little bit of a bow. In a subsequent video, I'm going to be adding a elevator to this, and maybe trying to get out that little bit of a bow, but we'll revisit that later. Now we can see the fuselage has come up really nice, and we can see what we've got to work with now in sort of not only restoring this, but adapting it to the 2 channel, because at present it's got the rudder, but it hasn't got the elevator, so we need to put an extra servo in this. Now you can see there's quite a bit of blue on this at the moment, and I've decided that this is how I'm going to leave it. Now it's all sanded. I think I've got every loose bit off. I'm sure I'll find the odd little bit that needs to just be touched a little bit, but it's all fairly secure now, all this blue. It's been sprayed on, so it's got into every nook and cranny. If I try and get the rest of the blue off, like on these delicate structures around here in the crevices, I'm going to do damage. So I've decided to leave it like that. Now with regards to the covering, I'm going to be covering this in laminating film and then tissue, and I'm going to be using a dark blue and a dark green. So this colouring probably, I say probably, won't show through, except for where it's on the wood like this and it's contrasting between the blue and the light balsa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this can of paint. It's just a Rust-Oleum ivory silk, and I'm going to give this a light dusting of this paint just to tone down the blue so we don't get that strong contrast. Now this is a piece of balsa I've sprayed, this is the section I've sprayed, and that is the bit I haven't. and you can see that it's a really good match. And once we get these dark tissues on, we're not going to see that blue or the contrast of the blue. Last thing we want to do is spend literally days covering this and then find out that actually it looks a bit patchy. So, but I'm really excited to get on with this and start building this up and getting it ready to cover. Now I'm going to draw this video to a close, and I'm kind of hesitating because I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the next video. I may well do the work on this wing just to add that little bit of strength, and there's a little bit of sheeting I've got to add in there. I damaged that just as I was cleaning it up, but that's an easy job. So that might be the next video, just strengthening that. The other thing I'd like to do fairly soon is get the old ED competition special 2cc engine up and running in the test stand and check this is okay, because if it is okay, I want to add a new, or make a new prop washer, because this prop washer is not an original, or at least kind of modify it so it looks a little bit better. It's very square edged at the moment. I want to make myself a nice big spinner like the ED should have, clean up the head and a compression screw. But I want to make sure it runs first, because I have got a ED comp special I can put in if that's not right. I don't want to make the bits for it and then find out it's not a runner. So that depends on the weather. But anyway, I hope you'll come back and see how we get on restoring this lovely Keil Kraft Bantam, because it really is a lovely classic aircraft from the 1950s. I can't wait to see this covered and to get it in the air again. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed seeing the kind of the stripping and cleaning up of this model, and found it useful. So, and I hope you'll come back and see how we get on with the build or the restoration. Thanks very much for watching.